Hey, what's up you guys? For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Nick. I am a professional photographer. I've been shooting professionally for approximately 2 years, but I've been shooting photography for 15 or 16 years ever since high school, and we're in my backyard today. For those of you returning, thank you again so much for subscribing and joining me for this video. We're finally doing the f-stop video. So today we're going to talk about making your photos pop, and what I mean by that is whether you're shooting portraiture or you're shooting landscape or street or urban or cityscape or architecture, this one trick, this one little skill set will help you with all of those to make your photos really stand out and help build your portfolio. And that's your aperture or your f-stop. So out here today I brought my 4x5 lens board with the lens so I can show you guys basic example of what f-stop is, and then we'll discuss how it affects your photography and how you can use it to really make your photos stand out and to pop and to become a much better photographer. So the basic of f-stop is the aperture of the lens, or how much light is coming through. So as you can see right there, we're at f5.6 with this lens. Now f5.6 with this lens is wide open. It's the equivalent to the Yongnuo f1.8, and that's because f-stop is greatly affected by the size of your sensor, the film you're using, and the lens length, or how zoomed in you are with that lens. So as you can see at f5.6, we're wide open, and if we bring it all the way down to f6.4, it's a really tiny hole. So the thing to remember is the larger the number of your f-stop, the smaller your aperture is. So how does that affect your photography? Now, the thing about f-stop is the lower the number, or the more wide open it is, the more shallow your depth of field is. Now, what I mean by that is what's going to be in focus is going to be a really small area. So at f1.8 with the Yongnuo, and I'm actually going to show an example. I set up an experiment with some bottles to show you, so I'm going to step aside. Example. So at f1.8 you can see that the one bottle here, that one of the bottles is in focus. It's not exactly sharp, but it is in focus, whereas the rest of the bottles are all out of focus. Now, so we're going to jump to f16 real quick, and as you can see, all the bottles are in focus. The wall in the background is in focus, everything in the background and foreground is in focus. So your depth of field is affected by your f-stop. Now, a lot of people use f-stop to compensate for exposure, and we'll actually go over that in the exposure video in the shooting manual mode after we discuss ISO and shutter speed, but right now I just want to discuss f-stop in your photography to make it really stand out and to make it really pop. So that depth of field, what does that mean for you as a photographer? Let's say you're trying to tell a story with your photo, and you've brought a model with you, and you're on a busy street, and you don't really want everything in the background as part of the story. If you use a small f-stop number or a wide open aperture, your model's going to be in focus, but everything in the background is going to be out of focus. And that makes that model pop, and that draws the viewer's eyes to where you want them drawn to. Now let's say you're shooting cityscape or landscape, and you want everything to be part of the story. You want everything as in focus as you possibly can get it. You'll shoot it at a much higher f-stop, so f22, f32, and f64, which is really tiny amount of light getting through. Your field of depth is huge at that point in time. Everything can be really in focus. It may not all be sharp, but it will be in focus. So the rule that I follow is I use shutter speed and ISO to determine my exposure. And I use f-stop 9 times out of 10 to tell my story. I use it to blur the background, blur the foreground, or to draw the viewer's eyes to a specific point on the photo. The thing that I want them to see, the thing that I want them to notice first is what I'll focus on. And if everything else is blurry or has that bokeh effect with the lights, then your eyes are immediately drawn to them, especially in the eyes in portraiture. Now in street photography it's really cool too, because if you use a lower f-stop number or a wider aperture, you can pick a subject in a crowd. So if you focus on that subject in the crowd with the depth of field, the people behind them, the people before them, any cars, signs, anything like that will have a blur to it. Depending on how low you go with your f-stop number will determine how thin your depth of field is and how much of it is in focus. So with a basic understanding of f-stop like that, I would recommend that you guys go out and put your cameras on aperture priority mode, but go out and shoot aperture priority mode, play around with it. With aperture priority mode, you pick the aperture that you want to shoot at. The camera will adjust your shutter speed based on the ISO you choose, and you can play with your ISO as well. And then you get an idea of the differences that you can get out of those photos. So I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the bottle experiments so you can see the transition through each one. So I'm going to step to the side. So f1.8. f2, f5.6, f8, f11, and f16. And as you can see, each of the bottles in the foreground and the background slowly get more and more in focus until we hit f16, where they're all just about in focus. And that's the changes with just changing f-stop. Now, I did change my shutter speed and ISO while doing those photos in order to ensure everything was exposed correctly, but while you're learning and you're practicing, I do recommend that you put it in aperture priority mode on your camera and go out and shoot and have a lot of fun with it. Learn your camera, learn the differences of what each f-stop does. That way, when you want to tell a story or you have something that you want to capture, like an image in your head that you want to bring to life, you now have a new tool in your toolbox to go out and do that. So before we leave, I'm going to show you some examples of some portraits that I was talking about, where we were out at the Ames campus in Loveland with Ariana, and as you can see, the backgrounds are blurry, but she is clear. Your eye is drawn to her. The story in that photo is about her. And that right there is the easiest example of what f-stop is and how to bring it into your photography to really make yourself stand out and really to up your photography game. So thank you guys again so much for joining me today. I hope you now have a good basic understanding of how f-stop works to make your photography pop. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification up there. Let me know how I'm doing in the comments below. Share the video, and you guys have a wonderful night. Bye.